I chose September 22nd because it was quiet. That kind of quiet you only get once a year when summer gives up and the world exhales. That was the feeling I wanted to carry into my marriage. Not grand, not loud, just steady, just ours. Eli understood. He always understood. He'd rebuilt the west wing of Alta Ridge Inn years ago, an old, fire-worn lodge tucked into the pines near Mount Blanca. I remember walking the property with him the first time when he paused in front of a half-burned banister and said, "It held on longer than it should have." That matters. That's what we were building, something that held on. We had a soft booking through his firm for the gallery space. No deposit yet, just intent and trust. Then came the dinner. It was supposed to be nothing, just a regular Sunday meal at my parents' house. Mom's roasted vegetables, Dad's red wine. Jenna talking too loud about something trending. I wore a new blouse I wasn't sure about, brought a bottle of Malbec Eli had picked out. I remember thinking, maybe this will be the dinner where they ask about the ceremony. Maybe this time they'd remember it was happening. They did. Just not for me. Jenna waited until dessert as always. She stood up all eyes and teeth and champagne flute and said, "Gavin and I are engaged." Applause, gasps, laughter. My mother covered her mouth in exaggerated joy. My father said, "Finally, like it was a victory for the family tree." I smiled. I did. I clapped with everyone else. And then Jenna added, "We're getting married September 22nd at Alta Ridge." There was a pause. Not for them, for me. I looked at my mother, then my father. No confusion, no concern, just delight. Mom had already pulled out her phone. "Say it again for the real sweetheart." I cleared my throat. That's my date." Jenna tilted her head. "Oh, I thought you hadn't finalized anything. The gallery director said the West Wing wasn't reserved. It was. Through Eli's firm. Technically," she said, waving her hand, "but you didn't lock it in. Gavin's best friend's cousin is a project manager there. We got it done. It's nothing personal." "It's entirely personal," I said. Dad folded his napkin. "Claire, Jenna's ceremony will have 150 guests, including vendors. You were doing something more intimate." "Right," Mom chimed in. "And we already moved the family funds to her planner's deposit. It just made sense." I looked at the ring on my finger, then at Jenna's. Bigger, shinier, newer, like everything she touched. "She's getting married once," Mom said, smiling. "Let her have the real day." The rest of the evening moved like water down a drain, faster than I could process. They took photos. Jenna did a champagne-pouring TikTok. Gavin fist-bumped my dad. I said nothing. I cleared plates because that's what you do when you've just been erased and nobody notices. Driving home, the silence in my car felt louder than the applause at the table. They called it a family decision. But the truth is, it wasn't a decision at all. It was a message. And I heard it, loud and clear. The following week, the group chat changed names. What had once been Claire and Eli wedding countdown quietly became Jenna's big day. No announcement, no apology. Just a new banner image, Jenna and Gavin posing under string lights, her ring front and center, our mother holding the champagne like a campaign manager. My name was still technically in the chat, but I wasn't tagged. Not once. Vendors started pulling out of my file. The florist emailed to confirm transfer of deposit per Jenna Weston's instruction. The calligrapher, I'd found a retired artist from Santa Fe, politely declined further coordination. She'd been booked. By someone else. Even the dress boutique rescheduled my fitting to accommodate priority clients. Jenna posted about hers that same day, saying yes to the dress. Weston women do it best. When I called my mother, she answered like nothing had happened. "Claire, honey, can we talk later? Jenna's planner's on the other line and we're finalizing the cake tasting." "You moved my vendors," I said. "Well, we shared the list, yes, but you hadn't made final decisions, and we already put money down for Jenna. It's just more efficient. I never gave permission." "Oh, Claire, don't be difficult." I almost laughed. Difficult. The word they used every time I asked to be treated like I existed. Dad, when I called him, didn't even pretend to be neutral. "It's not a big deal. You and Eli can do something more private, more aligned with your style. Jenna needs the show. She's the face now." The face. Like we were a brand. Like I'd been demoted without notice. I scrolled through the family Facebook page that night. My parents had posted a collage proud to announce Jenna Weston and Gavin Price, the next generation of the Weston legacy. No mention of me. Not even in the comments. It wasn't just the wedding. They were rewriting the archive. Even the engagement album we'd printed last fall, the one I'd designed with captions, the one I'd dropped off at my parents' house in a white envelope, was gone. Jenna had replaced it with hers. Same table, same frame, same silence. I told Eli everything. Sat on the edge of the bed, hands balled into the hem of my sweater, listing every tiny erasure like it was evidence in a quiet trial. He didn't interrupt, didn't get angry. He just sat beside me and asked, "Do you want to walk away?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I'd lost the dress, the date, the venue, the guest list. But worse, much worse, was the knowing I could disappear completely and they'd keep smiling for the camera like I was never supposed to be there at all. I didn't plan to confront her. I was driving back from the grocery store with a carton of eggs rolling on the passenger seat and the radio stuck between two static heavy stations. But my hands didn't take the usual right turn home. They kept going. Left, then left again. By the time I noticed where I was headed, I was already in front of my parents' house. I knocked once before letting myself in. My mother was in the kitchen folding napkins into swans. She always did that for big events. Birthdays, holidays, funerals. Moments that needed staging. She looked up. "Claire," she said, like she wasn't sure whether to be surprised or inconvenienced. "You could have called. I didn't come for coffee." That got her attention. She paused napkin mid-fold and gave me the look. That Weston family look, composed, slightly tilted head, like preparing for a negotiation. "You gave Jenna everything I said. My venue, my date, the vendors I found. You even rerouted the budget." She asked, she said calmly. And she needed help. "I asked too," I said. "I asked first. And you said yes. You asked like you were afraid of being a burden." Jenna asked like she knew we'd be thrilled. I blinked, so I was too polite. She folded the napkin pressed to the edges. "You've always been internal, private, hard to read. Even now you keep everything close. Jenna's easier to support. She's open. She's loud," I said. "She includes us," my mother replied. "That matters." There was a pause. "I lost a pregnancy," I said. She stopped folding. 2 years ago. It wasn't planned. Eli and I were scared and excited both. But then it was gone before we could tell anyone, and afterward I didn't know how to bring it up. She stared at me silent. "I wanted to tell you," I said, "but it felt like you didn't have space for it. I thought, maybe you'd say I was being dramatic, or worse, that I should have handled it better." Still nothing. Just the hum of the fridge and the ache in my throat. "You never said anything," she murmured. "I didn't think I was allowed." A long beat passed. Then she said, "Claire, everyone has pain, but we can't support what we're not told." I swallowed. "You didn't support what I did tell you. I told you about the date, the venue, my ideas." You nodded and smiled, then handed them to Jenna. Her voice lowered. "You're being unfair. We're not mind readers." "No," I said. "You're just editors. And when something doesn't fit your version of the story, you cut it." She looked away. "You've always seen yourself as the outsider. I became the outsider I corrected, because the only way to stay in was to vanish." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "This is getting dramatic." "I'm not being dramatic," I said, calm as I've ever been. "I'm being erased. That's the difference." And then I left. She didn't call after me. She just went back to folding the next napkin. I didn't make an announcement. There was no email blast or tearful phone call. I just stopped planning. I canceled the florist, released the quartet, deleted the RSVP site I had spent 2 weeks designing. I closed the Pinterest board I'd curated for a year without sharing with anyone. One click, gone. It was almost satisfying. Jenna posted about her cake tasting that same day. 3 flavors, 2 tastings, 1 perfect day. She tagged our mother in a story captioned, "Building Memories with the Best Wedding Team Ever." I watched it once, then muted her account. And still I didn't tell Eli. Not right away. He must have noticed. The planner's binder disappeared from the coffee table. The color swatches were gone from the kitchen wall. My browser history became a graveyard of closed tabs. But he didn't ask. Not until the third night when I left the dinner table untouched and folded myself into the corner of the couch like I was trying to vanish from the architecture of our life. "Claire," he said gently, "are we still getting married?" I looked at him. "I don't know." He didn't speak, just nodded slowly, took my hand and held it, not to fix me, not to redirect, just to keep me anchored. The next morning I woke up before sunrise, walked out onto the small back deck barefoot, coffee steaming in both hands, and stared at the line where the trees met the sky. The air was cold, not bitter, just honest. That's when I opened my email and contacted Alta. We had never signed the formal event contract. Jenna had booked the lodge and garden venue through a media partnership agreement with their marketing coordinator. But the West Wing, the original burned wing Eli had restored that had never been listed publicly. It was considered unfinished pending historical review. But Eli's firm had the design rights, and quietly legally I filed a request to reserve the West Gallery for private use on September 22nd. I didn't tell Eli. Not yet. Instead, I went to the attic. Tucked in the back of a cedar chest wrapped in tissue older than I was, lay my mother's wedding dress. 1980. Ivory lace high neckline fitted sleeves with a row of covered buttons from wrist to elbow. She used to say it was too heavy for modern weddings. She meant too modest, too dated, too hers. I took it anyway. It didn't fit. Not perfectly. Not yet. The shoulders needed adjustment and the waist would require some restructuring. But I didn't care. I wasn't wearing it for approval. I was wearing it for memory, or maybe to remind myself that I was still here. I didn't make an announcement. There was no email blast or tearful phone call. I just stopped planning. I canceled the florist, released the quartet, deleted the RSVP site I had spent 2 weeks designing. I closed the Pinterest board I'd curated for a year without sharing with anyone. One click. Gone. It was almost satisfying. Jenna posted about her cake tasting that same day. 3 flavors, 2 tastings, 1 perfect day. She tagged our mother in a story captioned, "Building Memories with the Best Wedding Team Ever." I watched it once, then muted her account. And still, I didn't tell Eli. Not right away. He must have noticed. The planner's binder disappeared from the coffee table. The color swatches were gone from the kitchen wall. My browser history became a graveyard of closed tabs. But he didn't ask. Not until the third night when I left the dinner table untouched and folded myself into the corner of the couch like I was trying to vanish from the architecture of our life. "Claire," he said gently, "are we still getting married?" I looked at him. "I don't know." He didn't speak, just nodded slowly, took my hand and held it, not to fix me, not to redirect, just to keep me anchored. The next morning I woke up before sunrise, walked out onto the small back deck barefoot, coffee steaming in both hands, and stared at the line where the trees met the sky. The air was cold, not bitter, just honest. That's when I opened my email and contacted Alta. We had never signed the formal event contract. Jenna had booked the lodge and garden venue through a media partnership agreement with their marketing coordinator. But the West Wing, the original burned wing Eli had restored that had never been listed publicly. It was considered unfinished pending historical review, but Eli's firm had the design rights. And quietly legally, I filed a request to reserve the West Gallery for private use on September 22nd. I didn't tell Eli. Not yet. Instead, I went to the attic. Tucked in the back of a cedar chest wrapped in tissue older than I was, lay my mother's wedding dress. 1980. Ivory lace high neckline fitted sleeves with a row of covered buttons from wrist to elbow. She used to say it was too heavy for modern weddings. She meant too modest, too dated, too hers. I took it anyway. It didn't fit. Not perfectly. Not yet. The shoulders needed adjustment and the waist would require some restructuring. But I didn't care. I wasn't wearing it for approval. I was wearing it for memory, or maybe to remind myself that I was still here. September 22nd came clear and golden, the kind of autumn morning that felt pre-approved by heaven. Jenna's wedding took over the eastern side of Alta. White tents, signature cocktails, a W flower arch positioned just so for drone footage. Guests in creams and blush tones milled about with sunglasses and filtered smiles. A photographer barked instructions. One more for TikTok. Now laugh like you've never known taxes. The West Wing remained closed to the public. No signs, no hashtag. At 3:15 p.m., a quiet crowd began to arrive. Not influencers, not extended family, just a small circle. Eli's colleagues from design school. My two former students who had become curators, a neighbor from our street who had once left soup at my door when I had the flu. They walked in slow, respectful silence. Inside the gallery had been transformed not into a wedding venue, but into a map of memory. Projected on one wall footage of the original lodge fire. On another, sketches Eli had drawn when he rebuilt it. In the center, a single dress form holding my mother's wedding gown, reconstructed but unpolished. The sleeves still bore slight creases. The buttons didn't all match. Next to it in calligraphy on raw canvas, this was never about the perfect day. It was about who remembered you were there. At 4:10, I heard the sound of heels on wood and knew before turning my mother had entered. She was followed by my father, then a handful of relatives confused, pausing at the threshold. "Is this part of the wedding?" I heard someone whisper. A volunteer at the door shook her head gently. "Private installation. You're welcome to stay." Then Jenna appeared, still in her gown, still radiant, but with the faint edge of someone who had lost track of the spotlight. "Claire," she said, frowning, "why didn't anyone tell me you were doing whatever this is?" She walked deeper into the gallery, scanning the walls like she expected her own face to appear. "It's quiet," she said, "and kind of cold. Is this supposed to be a statement?" She turned and saw the screen. Eli, standing near the back, nodded once to the tech. The lights dimmed, and there it was. A clip. Pulled from Jenna's now-deleted vlog archive. Dated 3 years ago. She's sitting on a balcony, drink in hand, laughing. Honestly, I didn't even like him that much at first, but when I found out Marissa was serious about him, I couldn't help myself. I mean, come on, we all wanted to prove we could take the lead if we wanted it. Then she raised her glass and added, "Sometimes you don't have to want the person, you just have to win." Silence. Even Gavin, her groom, frozen mid-step at the gallery door, stared like the walls had closed in. Jenna's face crumpled. "That was years ago," she said quietly. "It was a joke. I was performing. You know how online stuff works." Eli didn't speak. Neither did I. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. One by one, people began to leave. No drama. No confrontation. Just footsteps and lowered eyes. At the end, only 4 of us remained, me, Eli, my mother, and Jenna. I walked to the canvas near the dress, removed the pin holding it to the wall, rolled it slowly, deliberately. Then I turned and without anger, without gloating, said only this. "I didn't build this to ruin your wedding. I built it because I refused to vanish quietly." And then I walked out, leaving the gown behind. The next morning, I returned to the gallery alone. The West Wing was quiet, still carrying the scent of old wood and dust, but the air had changed. Lighter somehow. Like something had been exhaled. The dress was still on the form, the canvas gone, the lights dimmed. Only a slant of sun came through the high windows, stretching across the floorboards like a ribbon. I didn't touch anything, didn't need to. Outside, I could hear distant sounds, the tail end of Jenna's brunch, the clatter of champagne flutes, the final drone pass over the garden. A wedding completed, a public version of love preserved. I wasn't invited, but that didn't matter. I had kept my part of the date, my part of the space, my part of the truth. Later that week, my mother sent a short message. "Just 2 words, I see." I didn't reply. Some things aren't meant to be answered. Some things are only meant to be witnessed. Eli asked me if I wanted to do something, take a trip, host a dinner, make it official. I said no. I'm not trying to prove anything, I told him. And I wasn't, because in the end, I didn't need an audience. I didn't need forgiveness. I didn't need to win. I just needed them to stop pretending I was never there.